What was that? Go to the store? Oh, yeah, man. Hey, give me some of that, shit, I used to eat it all the time back in the day. Oh, what do they call it? Pussy. You guys like Dave Chappelle? Yeah, sorry. He does it better, but he probably does the pussy eating thing better too. But just because I'm out of practice, I could have been an Olympic pussy eater back in the day. I probably was. But anyway, that brings me to the point of this video, which is going to be adult themed, definitely not for children. And this is mostly to the fellas, and heck, it's to ladies who like ladies too, I suppose. I want to talk about pussy, yeah, and how bad of an investment it is these days. Man, I used to love pussy. I mean, I used to dream of, I mean, I still think about it all the time. I can't help it. I have testosterone coursing through my system. You know, I love women, and not just women, but their bodies, their individual bits, you know, and the whole package too, you know, the way they talk, the way they breathe, the way that they sound, the way that they feel. I mean, all of that. But, you know, and that's what I mean when I say pussy. I don't just mean the vagina, right? I mean, yeah, that's like the end goal for a lot of people, but it's a lot bigger than that. But you can insert as many of the she said that's what she said into this all you want. I'm not going to do that anymore, just because there's going to be a bunch. Hey, I'm a witty person. I'm gonna stick it in there whenever I can. All right. So, all right, there's this movement, they call it MGTOW, MGTOW, and it stands for Men Go Their Own Way. I hadn't heard about this until probably about 5 years ago. There was a coffee shop in this town I used to live. I won't mention it, or the town. You can figure out the town from my other videos, and you could probably figure out the situation by sleuthing if you feel like it. And if you do figure it out, put it in the comments below. I'd love to see if someone put the time in to figure out what I'm talking about. Anyway, this was I think it was a fancy coffee shop, and these two guys that owned it, they used their position, they used their position in running this place to bed a lot of women, and they bragged about it online. And from what I saw, now there may have been evidence that came out after the fact or beyond what I saw about it. Nothing that they did was illegal. As far as I know, they were never charged with anything legal. But and this was this was right when I first started hearing the term social justice warrior was attached to this situation. Well, it was revealed, these guys were bragging about this. They had forums online. It's also the first time I'd heard about red pilling or whatever, or really any of this men's rights stuff. And I'll come full circle and explain all that in a minute. But so these two guys, they used their position to bed a lot of women. You know, they owned this coffee shop. They met a lot of women through it. They had sex with these women and then kind of tossed them aside. And they had both gotten to the point where they were gamifying this stuff, you know, where it was almost like points. And they probably did keep actual scores for what they were doing. And yeah, it's disgusting. I'm not going to say that that's anything that I would do. I mean, I've never been in the position to do that. And I don't know what I would have done with that kind of opportunity. You know, I used to be a band manager, and part of being a rock and roll band manager was I expected if the band became popular that I would be surrounded by a lot of beautiful women and have lots of opportunity like that. Not to misuse them or abuse them or anything. And I think that these two guys, some of those situations had gotten like that. But most of it was just them hitting it and quitting it. It's disgusting, but it's not illegal. It's not necessarily immoral. Not if both people that are engaging in the act, you know, are kind of up and up on it. if they're tossing all kinds of lies and I love yous and shit at them, and that definitely devolves into an immoral stand. But basically what I'm saying is these guys were found out. Somebody connected them to these anonymous postings online, and people started protesting their coffee shop because these guys got laid so much. Yeah, that was it. Nothing criminal. No rapes. No abuse. Just pervs. That's a judgment call. I didn't hear about anything actually perverted. They just were sluts, male sluts. Sure, I'll call them that. Another value judgment, but so what? Judge me. I don't care. So these male sluts are just sluts. Okay, I'm not even going to quantify it by saying male sluts, but I'm saying that specifically so you don't think that I'm calling the girls that they were betting sluts, although they were too. I'm not talking about them. It takes two to tango. And the whole point that I'm trying to come back to full circle here is these men were held accountable for this situation. The women were automatically victims, right? Even though they were engaging in the same activity. I mean, and the difference between men and women is usually staggering. These women that were betting these two men, I mean, not separately in their own thing, not at the same time. How many men are they sleeping with? If they're engaging with sex with these guys so easily, and it's always easier for women, especially attractive women, to find partners. I mean, if they're not picky, it's always easier for them to find essentially an infinite amount of partners. What is it? There was an old TV show I saw one time where this man and this woman, and they had been dating, and they were exes, and they were still friends. I think it was a Richard Lewis show with Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't remember what it was called. Basically, what they were talking about was that it was easier for a woman to get laid, just on a whim. She could just call an ex-boyfriend and basically make it happen. And the funny thing was, Richard Lewis, he calls up an ex-girlfriend because the whole point was she was like calling bullshit. And I guess she called somebody and they were eager right away. And he's like, well, let me prove you how wrong. That doesn't just happen to everybody all the time. He calls up this girl and some ex of his, and just to prove the point. And she was interested. So he's just like, Jamie Lee Curtis was just proving a point, and she was happy to hang the phone up and not go over and meet her ex. But Richard Lewis calls up, and the woman is eager to engage. So he's just like, oh, I'll see you later. I gotta go. Proving how rare of a situation that was. That it was more than just, all of a sudden he didn't care about the point. He was like, whoa, hey, cool. But this show's back in the 80s, I think, maybe even early 90s. Times have changed a lot since then. And I don't know if I even said it here at the beginning. I've gone off on so many tangents here, but let me just be clear. Pussy is a bad investment, guys. Bad investment. And the whole point of the story I told at the top here was that nobody was protesting these loose women that were willing to have sex with these guys, supposedly dozens of them. No, they were victims. They weren't. And these guys, they weren't just engaging in a duo. They were predators. How does that work? How is it that the men are automatically predators and the women aren't? Like, and if you want to look up the specifics of the situation, and I can provide links if it really helps the argument here. I'm not trying to keep it secret. I'm just trying to not talk about people's business, especially because I don't know all the facts. But from what I heard, everything was legal. There was no prosecution. And and yet they're protested against. Ladies, what do you think men do extra things for? Once we've got our basic needs met, food, shelter, whatever, why do you think a man buys a Corvette instead of a Chevette? It's to get pussy. It's status. And most of the point of status is to get laid. Like, you could say, oh, it's money or power. What do you think money and power is for? You know, if you demonize and call the pursuit of women toxic, you basically have destroyed most of why anything gets created in this world. I hate to break it to you. Most of us are pretty simple creatures. Most of us men are pretty simple creatures. And, you know, I'm not saying that's why everything gets done, but you would be surprised. You would be surprised how many things happen simply for that connection. And it's not always just sex. It's not domination. It's built into our DNA. There's something satisfying about conquering a woman sexually that it's more satisfying than anything on the planet. And I imagine that, you know, gay men, to them it's the same. It's the same type of drive. You know, they just prefer different things. Ooh, prefer. I didn't mean to say that word. It's so offensive now, huh? But look, I'm not advocating, you know, playing for the other team or switching to homosexuality or, you know, anything like that by saying pussy's a bad investment. I'm just saying, stop chasing it so much. Stop making it such a, like, core part of your life, because the payoff is just not what it used to be. You know, women who wanted to be slutty used to just be cool with it and let it be. And, you know, it wasn't a problem if that's what you both wanted to be into. Now, you get to be the predator and maybe even charged with crimes, and they get to be victims, and they get their ass kissed, and they get patted on the back and told how brave they are for outing someone for engaging in consensual activities. And sometimes that's a best case scenario. There, you know, these days, if you get accused of rape, you're already guilty. It doesn't matter. If you've been accused, you're done. You're toast. You're going to spend the rest of your life trying to disprove that you're not. I mean, assuming it didn't happen. I mean, there's plenty of rape out there. I'm not saying rape doesn't exist. But men that are falsely accused are having to spend the rest of their lives, you know, in hell, essentially. Mostly because they made a bad investment. They invested their time and energy in the wrong woman, and it blew up in their face. You got to watch out for this stuff, guys. I've spent a lot of my life single. I mean, mostly because it's been easy to spend most of my life single. I mean, look at me. But, you know, I do realize that now, as I go towards a more healthy body, that its interest is going to increase, and I've got to be vigilant. Because in the past, and I've gone through this cycle several times when I've lost weight, that, you know, all of a sudden the interest would come back, and it's usually the first couple of interested parties are not the best ones. They're usually pretty desperate, and I mean, not always. Hey, great stuff happens all the time. If you're expecting bad stuff to happen all the time, you're gonna miss the good stuff. I'm not saying ignore everything and push everything away. I'm just saying be vigilant. Be picky. Be as picky as women are, guys, or more. You know, women are dangerous. You know, they talk about how dangerous and toxic men are. Women are dangerous and toxic too, okay? Everybody can be. And the nature of society today is society backs them up almost in every possible scenario. Coming back to that first story here, those poor guys lost their business. And you know what's sneaky about that whole situation is I've tried paying attention to it, at least after the fact, and some of the people who started the first protests were also part of a group that bought out their business for super cheap and replaced it with their little business, their little lesbian coffee shop. So, ulterior motives, yeah. And the problem is every time one of these things is successful, every time one of these men who are just sleazebags are vilified and turned into criminals, and their businesses are stolen away from them, and their livelihoods are destroyed, and they're run out of town. Every time this happens successfully, it re-emboldens them, the women that want to do this kind of destruction, simply because they're men, simply because they're sleazy, simply because they probably weren't picked to be in their harem. A lot of it's jealousy. You know, I say men are simple creatures in certain ways. Women are simple creatures too. They are driven by jealousy so much more than they're willing to admit. And that's where a lot of this insanity comes from, guys. Really, come on, watch your ass. Don't be invested in some bad pussy. Really be vigilant. Really be picky. Make sure it's worth it. Make sure you've got that real connection. Make sure you've got that chemistry. Make sure you've got understanding before you go all in. And don't ever get married. Oh, dear God. Watch my other video about that. Don't ever get married. I don't care how great she is. Don't. And even if you got to, fake marriage. Remember, fake marriage. Look it up. I'm sure there's websites that explain exactly how to do it. But, yeah, guys. So, my misogynistic rant is now over. I wish you the best. Good luck. Love you. Mean it.